that we are living, see how we can comply with necessary regulations, talk about how we can also set up our system that it will fit in with the extant world.
I mean, cooperatives, they have a lot of challenges with tax matters. They have problem registering with NAFDAC. They have problem registering with standard organization, because most times you see these people have their cooperative and they are still required to say, go and bring your CAC. So we want to see how we can get them to have ease of doing business. All those bottlenecks that they face on a daily basis, we want to see how we can get them to surpass those challenges for them to be able to do business well, to create employment, to create products and services that will serve majority of the people.
Cooperative societies, we found it very apt to actually collaborate with them, partner with them, because they are operating at the grassroots level, and one of their own also objective is to achieve financial inclusion, and that makes us good partners, and that's why we are taking advantage of this conference to come and talk to the participants about the benefits of the INERA and how they can actually use it to improve accountability, improve
That's it for the business news at this time. Let's quickly take a break. Don't forget, our discussion is up ahead. My guest will be joining me shortly. He will be joining me via Zoom. He's on right now, but you will get to see him in just a few minutes from now. Let's quickly take a break. Take this break to join us on all our social media accounts. Try to connect with us. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome to the program. Thank you all for joining us today.
What we're seeing today is a bridge that we will cross together, with the young people.
Let us do what we can to making sure that our ordinary households don't fall into hunger. They can't feed themselves.
If you continue to do the same thing and expect a different result, then there's something wrong with you.
But there's a field for everyone to play. And we see a potential contribution of all partners, including local oil companies, in the short term and also in the long term.
But what we're discovering now is financial resilience matters.
This is where we keep you up to speed with everything in finance, business, markets, economy. After all, here's Moneyline with me, Nancy. So welcome again, and let's do it again today.
There is a new and refreshing offer for our esteemed audience across the globe. The new AIT Cloud TV is an online streaming service that offers you attractive opportunities to view our rich, exciting, and entertaining programs anytime, anywhere. AIT Cloud TV is available on the web on www.ait.app, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Roku, and Android TV. You can also download the mobile app from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. Simply connect to the internet, download the app, register, and watch live or catch up on unlimited hours of exciting shows. AIT Cloud TV. TV on the go.
Hello, and welcome to the program. This is Moneyline with me, Nancy.
So we really have to keep thinking out of the box about how to get money to the least accessible in our society.
Everything has to be re-examined in our economy, in our health system.
We are also ensuring that government does not continue to manage this refinery because government is not really equipped to manage refinery.
We need to come forward and do something different so that we move from the situation of looking at things from it's purely a consumptive approach to a productive environment.
The government and the people need to.
Moneyline with me, Nancy Naji. It's so nice to know that you're joining us again today. All right, welcome back. As we move on with the program, my guest is Okpoluwa Dakmo-Thomas. He's an international financial analyst, and he joins us from the United Kingdom. Hello, Okpe, and welcome to the program. Can you hear me? Can you see me? Can you hear?
Yes, I can hear you very well. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. How are you?
Yes, I'm doing okay. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. Can you speak to me about your perspective about poverty in the country? You've seen different administrations say that they would try to address poverty in their own way. Previous administration, for example, had a poverty alleviation program, I think called NAPEP. We also, we've seen different programs at alleviating poverty. This current administration came up with a, CCT for social investment programs and all of that to try to reduce poverty. Why do you think that even with all these efforts from different administrations, yet we've not seen poverty significantly reducing in Nigeria?
Is the approach the government has been using to tackle poverty. So government always believes that social protection policies are the only way, or they invest so much in conditional cash transfers or in poverty alleviation schemes, but don't understand that for you to address poverty, for you to bring people down, bring people or make people richer, you have to address unemployment. And because, for example, if people are employed, people will not be poor. So you can't keep on spoon feeding people. And how long do you want to do it? It's not sustainable. If you want to adopt, for example, let's look at China. China went on 4 decades in taking 800 million people out of poverty. They did that for 40 years. And what approach did they take? They used broad-based economic growth, which obviously was on the pillars of effective governance, industrialization, education, improved agricultural productivity, and so many other efforts, managed urbanization, rural-urban migration. Those are the things they have to look at. It's like, how do we address poverty? We have to look at the data. For example, in Nigeria, how many people are poor? Who are the people most affected by poverty? In Nigeria, 60% of women are poor. 60% of women are poor. So how do you want to fix that gap? You have to ensure that you make a lot of women empowerment schemes. How do you ensure women are empowered? You have to educate them, because education does 2 things. It makes them employable, and 2, it reduces low fertility rates. And what I mean by low fertility rates is developed countries, how many women give birth to more than 2 children? If you check, you have $2.8 return into the economy, improve GDP. If you close the gender gap, you improve GDP. So those are the things that the new government should try and tackle, because education is very important. Also, the approach like I'm talking about is you now have to look at it from an industrialization perspective. What has the government, or what will the government do to make SMEs more viable? What would they do? You have to improve ease of doing business. You have to provide electricity. When you do that, you set yourself up for industrialization. That way, SMEs are more viable and people can get more employed. And then you tackle what are the reasons, or you tackle the inflation by doing that as well. So poor people are you have a lot of poor people in different regions, but how do you take those people in the rural areas? How do you make them richer? You have to create public infrastructure that takes the rural area to the urban area, and that way you give them exposure to markets. And when you expose them to markets, more commerce, more commerciality, and that's how you take people out of poverty. So you can't do so much with CCT, conditional cash transfers, elevation program. You can't do so much with that, because those things are not sustainable. Those things are expensive. You borrow money to even do that. You spend a large part of your revenue doing that, when you can actually just invest in the economy. And also, another thing that I think the question is not what is the incoming government doing to fix poverty, is what are the incoming governments doing. We try to limit poverty tackling to just the federal government, but that's not right. The state government has a role to play. The local government has a role to play. Last year, the multidimensional poverty index came out. What did it tell you? We are always using the monetary approach to determine what poverty is. Okay, people living under $1.9, but that's not what poverty is alone. Apart from the monetary approach, you have to look at it. How many people are healthy? How many people have good education? How many people have proper living standards? If you use that number, you see that we have 133 million people multidimensionally poor. But if you use the monetary approach, we're just maybe about 75 million people poor. So how do you tackle multidimensional poverty? You have to involve the state government. You have to involve the local government. Like, for example, look at the state government. Look at Bayelsa, for example. In terms of population, it's probably the smallest state in the country. Allocation is almost 100 billion annually. But it's the second poorest state in the country as well. How? What was the state government doing to fix that? You can't wait for the federal government to always intervene, because there are so many things you have to do with the grassroots. You have to, it's the people closer, the poorer people, the rural area, the state government and the local government have more access to addressing these needs. The federal government is
Okay, Okpe, let me come in here and let's take a look at the different strata of this poverty. Because when I take a look at even poverty ratios around the world, or articles even on poverty, if we come to Nigeria, it's as if we have poor people, then we have extremely poor people, then now we're having multidimensionally poor people. How can we really deconstruct these categories of people, and do we address eradicating or reducing perhaps poverty along these three lines the same way? Because, for example, the World Bank monetarily says someone that earns less than $1.90 a day, multidimensionally poor, which you mentioned earlier, taking a look at health facilities, taking a look at education, access to health and education, human development indices. If you take a look at also even poverty, like what I mentioned earlier, monetary poverty. So do you think that our approaches over the years targeted at this set of people, because multidimensionally poor, the way we should address multidimensionally poor people, is it the same way we should address someone living in extreme poverty? I hope you understand my question. That are you looking at them with the same lenses?
Yeah, so the multidimensional factor, the monetary approach as well. So it gives you a nuanced approach to what we need to do. The approach has been poor all along. That's why we've not solved anything. Like I've said, you have to sit down and ask yourself what level or which government is responsible for these indicators. So, for example, in nutrition, which is obviously an indices for multidimensionally poor people, who tackles it? The federal has a role to play, the state has a role to play, the local government. Food security, the federal has a role, the state, the local government. Access and time to healthcare. Time to healthcare is, if I am ill, how quick can I get to a healthcare facility? It's the state and local governments that are in charge of that, not the federal government. So when you look at these indicators and which government is responsible, you have a better approach to solving poverty, because the multidimensional poverty index, it gives you, especially the one in Nigeria, it gives you an overview of the regions that are actually very poor. So you see, okay, Bayelsa South is actually very poor. You see Oyo West is actually very poor. These are the things that gives you an idea of, okay, so what should these areas do? What should these people do to actually fix this issue? So when you sit down and say, how do we solve poverty? Everybody has a role to play. The federal government has a role to play, which what education has a role to play with macroeconomic stability. The state government has a role to play with healthcare, schools, education as well, nutrition, local government, healthcare, infrastructure. Okay, you have to fix a road, because let's say you have poor people in rural areas. Hope you know that 90% of the food we consume are created and developed in the rural areas. People in Ikoyi are not farming. The people that are farming are in the poorer, in the rural areas. How do you bring these markets closer to the commercial areas? It's by infrastructure. So if you fix the road and the channels, improve security in those areas, that's the federal government role as well. But if you restructure, the state government has a role in also improving security. Then you now see that more people in the rural areas will have access to the urban areas, and obviously improves their chances of earning more income. That's the problem. And if you look at agriculture, for example, you have small income holder farmers, which obviously are majority. I mean, that's what majority of Nigerians do. That in the poor regions do subsistence agriculture. But how do you make it commercially viable? You have to give them access to markets, because what we've seen over the years is middlemen exploiting these income farmers and saying, oh, they will do the distribution and logistics, and then give them little change, and then you sell it to the market. Give these poor people a chance to sell, and you improve their lifestyle. So Also, the individuals also have a role to play in terms of family planning. I'm not saying we should adopt China's policy of one child per mother, but we have to address it. 5 children per mother in Nigeria is actually wrong. When you say when we look at, let's look at our GDP numbers now. GDP per capita income, that's about $2,000 currently. That's because our population is large, our GDP is not even great. So in Africa, we have the largest GDP, but it doesn't show in Nigerians because we have so many people. By 2050, we're projected to be 400 million people. How do we intend to take care of these 400 million people? So the way to go is to be addressing it from a state, local government level and a federal level. Everybody has a role to play in this.
I mentioned this, talking about measures to reducing poverty, and let's take a look at it this way. Do you think that we can actually reduce poverty to the barest minimum if we do not have solid structural reforms? One, if we also do not have policies that boost productivity across board. That's 2. And if we do not improve, for example, access to electricity as well as other social infrastructure like water and all of that. Do you think that if we do not improve along these 3 deep reforms, that we are paying lip service to alleviating poverty?
Yes, yes, right. There's no way we can reduce poverty without paying, measures, without taking these measures into consideration. Because you can't have, the reforms that we need are structural reforms. Like I said, infrastructure, electricity. Look at China. Look at the industrialization. Look at Hong Kong, Singapore. All you just have to do is industrialization and trade, business. SMEs are the largest employers of labor, not government. A lot of people think, government should improve employment. And yes, that the only thing they can do to improve employment is the macroeconomic stability, so interest rates and whatnot. And that's through the central bank governor. But in terms of actually hiring people, government civil service or public service cannot hire everybody. What they can do is to create policies, like you rightly said. For me to go up and register my business, I start. Also, we have to remove cartels and associations from being exploitative. I want to be able to go to the market. I know that I will generate 5,000 naira today without anyone coming to come and ask for some sort of levy or tax and say, it's just because you're in the market and whatnot. Those things are not good. We have to find a way to reduce that because you are reducing income of this productivity. So those are the policies you have to look at. How do you make ease of doing business? Even in the trade area, how do you bring goods? It should not take you so much time for you to bring goods from other countries. That's how Hong Kong made prosperity, because of their entreport with trade with China. So if you give yourself access to markets, to the international markets, more goods come into the country. When more goods come into the country, it reduces, it brings down inflation as well. So when you address these things, you have to make the structural reforms. Infrastructure is very important. You can't do anything without infrastructure. It's the bane of our existence. You can't do anything without solving energy poverty. You can't go anywhere without electricity. When you have those things, companies can thrive, businesses can thrive, and when businesses thrive, employment obviously would improve. But you also have to look at education. The most important thing is female education. With female education, you have less people coming into the world. When they say people are poor in Nigeria, or when we say 6 out of 10 Nigerians are poor, because people are born into poverty. It's not that people that are in the middle class are coming down to poor. No, people are born into poverty. You see poor people bringing more poor people into the world. But that can stop when you educate the poor people. When you educate them, they will understand the importance of family planning, and that obviously stems that number. It tackles unbridled population growth. When you do that, you can now plan and say, okay, with what we have, comparative advantage. If we're at the coastal line, let's improve our trade. Okay, our state is close to improve trade. How can that improve my area? States should look at how they can efficiently allocate their federal allocation resources and see this. And let's say, okay, let me improve the lives of people here. So you need structural reforms, you need policies, but a lot of conditional cash transfers we do are inefficient if you have not solved. You can reduce tax, give tax holidays, you can make things easier, cheap education, affordable housing. Yeah, those are big other policies we should be looking at. But conditional cash transfers and saying you want to give 5,000 to people every month is inefficient and ineffective.
I'm taking a look at even the 3 dimensions which I asked you earlier, and let's take a bit with macroeconomic conditions. And what came to my mind is that I think from the year 2000 to 2008, we saw bold reforms in Nigeria. We encountered reforms that really told us then that it was possible. But we've also seen macro say that in Nigeria, for the fact that you have work does not mean that it will pull you out of poverty. Yeah, you know, the World Bank said that some months ago. So how do you think that we can approach macroeconomic stability in a way that it would create prosperity for the larger percentage of the population? I need to put a caveat. Those years also, many years ago, I think even in 2011, 2012, 2010, we were growing at a GDP rate of about 7-8%. You know, and yet we couldn't pull a large percentage of people out of poverty. So how do we really solve this problem? Bearing in mind also that the new administration will take off in the next to address a whole lot of challenges.
Yeah. So thank you for saying with not so much money in the kitty. So the first thing the government has to look at is how can we improve the money in the kitty? Because that's the first thing to stabilize the economy. We have fiscal pressure right now. Debt servicing is at a terrible level. But how do we improve that? We have to make tough decisions. And the tough decisions, we all know what it is to remove subsidies. If you remove subsidies, you have more inflow of oil money. I mean, Nigeria needs oil money. Because with oil money, two things can happen. Number one, you can be able to pay your debts, existing debts. Two, you can also be able to build an infrastructure. It is very difficult for you to print money and fix infrastructure, because once you do that, you have to ensure that the assets you're investing in can be able to pay back the debt repayments, which is very tough. But with oil money, you have more access to money, and so subsidy is number one. That's how you can get your macroeconomic stability. Second thing is to fix the FX window. There is no investor in the world. I'm an international, more dollars, more. And that gives you like a large kitty for you to now deploy and invest into the country. But those two come at consequences. Number one, if you take away subsidies, you know what will happen to fuel price. When fuel price goes up, you now understand that people might also have low purchasing power. But then again, you have to now look at the data. Data is very important. What do Nigeria